and then you've got Jalen Coker there as well. We kind of like Jalen. I'm a cokehead.
Wow.
Okay. For example, I kind of like Jalen Coker.
We can get behind that one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Cokeheads unite.
You get him on your waivers, you could rename your fantasy team the Cokeheads.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Connor Rogers, Matthew J. Berry, Lawrence Jackson. Shout out to Cokehead Nation, all the Jalen Coker fans out there.
1,000%. We're rising up. We're becoming a bigger group here as well. It's
dozens,
a great story.
Dozens of us.
Dozens of us. Easy.
Dozens.
It's an easy kid to root for.
Yeah,
it's a great story, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Undrafted, insane production in college, and now
Holy
we'll get
Cross,
an opportunity.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
right.
I mean, just like, went to a small school, undrafted, and now he's the number 2 wide receiver on a professional NFL franchise.
The mighty.
Yes.
Mighty Carolina Panthers.
Keep pounding, Lawrence.
Yes.
Keep pounding.
I state
Today we're going to help you.
Us cokeheads like to keep pounding.
Maybe Jalen Coker will make another appearance. We'll help you set your Week 10 lineups, keep it open, close it out as we do every Wednesday. We'll look at who's trending up during who's eating good and our best bets during last call. We got early line alert, some big spreads this week for Week 10. Let's jump right into it here, fellas, with our Rotoworld player news. And if you missed the show yesterday, we recapped a lot of different trades, including but not limited to the Jonathan Mingo trade, where the Cowboys sent a 4th rounder for him. The Steelers get Mike Williams. We'll revisit that in a second. The Steelers got Mike Williams after our show. They've been chasing a big name wide receiver. It's not Brandon Ayuk or Davante Adams, but they get Mike Williams to hopefully help out alongside George Pickens. Khalil Herbert adds some depth to the Bengals backfield. And listen, guys, shout out to Dan Morgan. He drinks free today. This man got a 4th round pick.
Yeah.
4th round pick for Jonathan Mingo.
Right. Dan Morgan, absolutely. You see it right there from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. Cowboys acquiring wide receiver Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 7th from the Panthers, which in theory will be an early round 7th, for a 2025 4th round pick per sources. So Panthers general manager Dan Morgan, you drink for free.
Yeah.
Because I have to tell you something. If this trade had gone down in like one of my dynasty leagues, like there would be like 3 days worth of text messages back and forth, angry separate threads, threats of vetoes.
Right, veto voting.
People wanting to leave the league, hurt feelings as well. Just to give you guys a quick list of some other wide receivers in the NFL that were traded for, well, let's call it less than a 4th round pick. They were acquired for less capital than a 4th round pick. Deontay Johnson by the Ravens. DeAndre Hopkins to Kansas City. Let's see, Deontay Johnson again when he went from Pittsburgh to Carolina.
That's right.
Jerry Jeudy when he went from Denver to Cleveland. How about Brandon Cooks when he went from Houston to Dallas? And, of course, Amari Cooper when he went Dallas to Cleveland. Just again, just to put a wrap on it, they got less by trading away. They gave up more to get Jonathan Mingo than they got back for Amari Cooper from the Browns. I just, we don't have to get into a big debate here, but can I get some consensus on the fact that Deontay Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper have all had varying levels of success in the NFL?
Yeah,
they've all been productive at various. Like we can argue about Amari Cooper versus Jerry Jeudy, but they've all had success at the NFL level.
I'll be honest.
Has Jonathan Mingo ever had success at the NFL level?
I have a different take on this than everybody else does.
Please do.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't. No, I don't.
Trying to sell some hope to Dallas fans.
It's funny. This ain't what you want, Dallas. But it matches with how they season going. That's the crazy part about it.
Now, just to give equal time, I'll just say this. I did see this on X, formerly known as Twitter. My friend Matt Harmon, who does a great job, by the way. Matt does a great job. Matt's argument was that he feels like Mingo is much more suited to be like a power slot, like a big slot guy, and that Carolina never used him that way, and that that maybe the fact that he has not had success in the NFL yet is not Mingo's fault. Your thoughts on that, Connor?
Well, number one, that's the exact role he should be projected to. But number
fair.
two, where does CeeDee Lamb have a lot of production from?
Oh, crap. That's right. They do have CeeDee Lamb. He's good, right?
He's a decent player.
I mean, I haven't broken down the tape, but I
They
do
like him
feel
in the
like
slot.
CeeDee Lamb is.
The other thing too, Jalen Coker, he's that guy. That's what he did in college.
Yeah.
He's 6'1", 215, 220. Yeah. He's a slot player as well. This is Jonathan Mingo's third year?
Yeah. Or second. He was 2023's draft.
Either way, it was tough for him to get on the field with the Panthers, so that's kind of what make it all crazy. It's not like he coming from the Steelers or anything. Right. You can't get on the field on the Panthers when receivers have gotten traded away. Davante Johnson, receivers are hurt. Adam Thielen, you still can't get on the field. That's a little alarming.
Well, yeah, I think the argument here is, and so Matt makes a great point, which is that the Panthers didn't use him right. Big shock. Dysfunctional coaching staff in Carolina that didn't use an asset properly. Okay, fine. But I think the counter is, and by the way, I'm not trying to throw Matt under the bus because Matt was not making this point.
He's giving good context.
He was just giving context.
Yeah.
Like so, like I said, Matt's a friend and I'm a fan. I just wanted to give context there. But what I would say is that I think what the clowning is, and this isn't what Matt was fighting against, but the clowning is not about whether Mingo can be a productive wide receiver in the NFL. Maybe he can. Maybe he just didn't have the right role and opportunity in Carolina. And we've certainly seen players that get drafted by a team, don't do anything, and then they go to a new situation, and suddenly you're like, oh, hey, there you go.
Right.
Sam Darnold's in the MVP conversation, and there's, different position, different circumstances. But my point is we've seen players have success with teams after they get drafted by a team that they didn't have success with. All of that said, they gave him a fourth for a guy that has done nothing in the NFL. Like, you want to take a flyer on Jonathan Mingo, okay.
For a sixth.
For a sixth,
seventh.
for a conditional seventh.
Yeah,
Conditional.
we
for a
talking
conditional
about sixth and
seventh.
seventh. We not talking about it like this.
If it's a conditional seventh that could maybe get to a sixth based on production and playing time, okay. Sure, whatever, it's a flyer. Whatever, late day 3 pick. But you gave up a 4?
It's bad at allocation of assets.
It's a bad allocation of assets.
So,
how about
puzzling.
them Cowboys?
Puzzling.
How about them Cowboys?
Another wide receiver move, we said.
I almost feel bad for Cowboys.
No, you don't.
I don't.
Almost is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Almost is deadlifting 600 pounds.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. What are you going to do? But, I feel bad for my guy Eights. I legitimately feel bad for my guy Eights. I'm CeeDee Lamb, my buddy Eights.
Yeah, he's in a tough situation.
Yeah,
Cooper Rush show is underway.
Yeah.
The Steelers acquire Mike Williams. They give the Jets a 2025 fifth-round pick. Lawrence, Mike Williams has been irrelevant in fantasy this year, largely because a slow return from the torn ACL. Now Davante Adams in New York, Allen Lazard, Garrett Wilson. Can he find himself back in fantasy relevance with the Steelers offense?
Did you say fifth-round pick, you say?
Fifth-round pick.
Ooh, man, never mind.
He's also, by the way, had success in the NFL, Mike Williams.
Yes.
Exactly.
Another one to the board.
Yeah, well, I'll say
couldn't
this.
fit him.
I think he got a better chance with this team. You got Russell Wilson in there now. He's got a better chance in Pittsburgh than he ever had with the Jets, because even before Davante Adams, there was Allen Lazard there blocking him. So you had Allen Lazard, Garrett Wilson, and then you got Breece Hall coming in for some targets. So at least here in Pittsburgh, he's got a shot. Russ is throwing the ball up and away. And that's what we've known Mike Williams to be, and that's what his value's been in fantasy. So I'll say this, he's got a better shot in Pittsburgh. Ain't nothing you excited about, but he's got a better chance here than he did for the Jets.
24 hours ago, he had no fantasy value.
Yeah.
Now he potentially has a path to it. He had no path to, fantasy value on the Jets other than injuries to like 3 or 4 guys ahead of him. Now he goes to a situation in Pittsburgh where you've got a quarterback in Russell Wilson who's top 10 in the NFL in average depth of target, not scared to throw it up there, throw it deep. Mike Williams is a good, high ball, go up and grab it, contested catch guy, wins 50-50 balls. And there's only one wide receiver, George Pickens, on this team that has more than 25 targets. So it does want to be a run-heavy team, but they're going to throw more under Russell Wilson than they would with Justin Fields. And giving another weapon to that passing attack, I felt like this is more of a better NFL trade than it is fantasy trade. Definitely. Because it just improves the Steelers' offense. It's a big red zone threat for Russ, and it's just another person that teams have to deal with defensively. Whereas before you were just sort of like, okay, you got Pickens, you got Calvin Austin. It is weird though. Could you see? This is going to sound like an insane question, but when I just think about Calvin Austin, super fast. George Pickens, super fast. could you see them trying to use Mike Williams as a big slot guy here in the set? You know what I mean? Because it's like they have field stretchers already. Like, it's weird. Like, what Mike Williams does well doesn't feel like that's a need for the Steelers.
I felt a little redundant.
Yeah.
Mike Williams' problem is this year, since he's come back from the ACL, he's just not moving well.
Yeah.
And that's not shocking, right? He's coming off a torn ACL, but a guy that was never that fast to begin with. He's more of a jump ball player. It does feel, I'd be surprised. Like, are they going to manufacture targets to Mike Williams? I don't think so.
Right.
I think he's just another Russ Moonball merchant, or that's what you're hoping for.
I like the phrase Moonball merchant.
It's like he's the wide receiver, too, that they feel like they've needed because they haven't had it consistent.
Yeah. He's not Van Jefferson, right? That's almost what this comes down to.
Yeah, exactly right. And so, I think it's slight uptick in Russell Wilson's fantasy value, but Mike Williams shouldn't be picked up in any league that he's already not rostered in, right? He's already been rostered, I think, in most super deep leagues, and in a league that isn't super deep, I don't know that Mike Williams has any standalone fantasy value where I'm chasing him.
I just picked him up in the league of assholes. So
right.
There you go.
But
so times may be tough.
I mean, times
have been tough.
Oh, dude, tell me you're down bad without telling me you're down bad.
And I'm 5-4. Finally got over the 500 hump. I play Connor this week. It's a big game.
It is. 5-4 matchup.
You know, so Mike Williams is gonna get me over the hump.
Almost our entire league is 5-4 or 4-5.
It's tight this year.
Really bunched up.
It's
really bunched up. Yeah.
One more bit of trade news here, Matthew. This is just a fun one. How about the Commanders being in this year and getting Marshon Lattimore, a secondary that didn't have a ton of talent, now gets one of the best cover corners in football.
Yeah, it was an area of need for the Commanders and exciting. Like, usually at the trade deadline, we're like, hey, we've completely mismanaged Chase Young and Trent Williams, and here, something we could have gotten a first for a year ago when we knew we should have traded him, but now we'll just take like a fifth. So it's exciting that we're actually buyers. Speaks to new ownership and new leadership, obviously, getting rid of Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder, of course. Huge part of that as well. Marshon Lattimore, 4-time Pro Bowl selection. He has the third most pass breakups in the NFL since he entered the league in 2017. The concern with Lattimore, of course, is can he stay healthy? Since the start of 2022, he's played 24 of 43 games. So he's missed a decent amount of time. He's banged up right now. All that said, he's better than what they got, right?
By a wide
margin. Like, it's an improvement. And so, obviously having a head coach in Dan Quinn that would say, like, he can fit into the kind of defense that they're running as well. So, like, I don't know if there's a fantasy impact here, except that just maybe, like, the Commanders, which we've said is, like, a very good matchup for opposing offenses. Like, the defense has been playing better, and now this is an addition that will help that. So, I do think the Commanders no longer an easy matchup. I don't think that it's a hard one still, but the defense improves, and as a Commanders fan, it's fun.
It's got to be. Wait a long time.
I'd rather give up a third and a fourth for Marshon Lattimore than a fourth for Jonathan Mingo.
It's a testament to how their season is gone, the quick development of Jaden Daniels. If they're 2-7, they're not making this move.
Of course not.
They're 7-2. They're saying with our defense playing better, with our defense starting to stop people, we're still gonna go try to improve the team, and that's what they did. Love to see it.
Yeah. All right. Yep. And I thought the price was reasonable.
Absolutely. For one of the best cover corners in football. How many conversations have we had on this desk this year where, this number one receiver has the Commanders this week. He's on the love list. He's in our props, this and that. It changes a lot in terms of matchups.
I'll tell you, the biggest winner of this, there's three big winners for this trade. Number one, the Commanders. Number two, Marshon Lattimore. He goes from the Saints, which is a disaster, to now he's got a shot at, he's going to play in the playoffs, and he's got a shot at a Super Bowl. And three, Mike Evans, who doesn't have to face him anymore. He's like, get him out of the division. Finally, Mike Evans is like
kryptonite.
Kryptonite.
I think both of them like fighting each other.
Oh my goodness,
that's
right?
That's kind of the end of an era right there in the NFC South.
You never know. They could run into each other in the playoffs again. Heavyweight fight. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah.
With that, let's move to keep it open or close it out. We're here to help you make some of the biggest lineup decisions of the week, and we kick things off with the quarterback, and that quarterback is C.J. Stroud, who, after losing to the Jets, took a lot of accountability on just simply being better this week.
Of course, it's embarrassing, and to come out here on a primetime game and get embarrassed like that is never fun. And I believe we have to be better in a lot of areas. And that starts with me. I think there's plays I got to make, throws I got to make, Times I got to sit in the pocket and just trust my guys. So I really point the finger at me and realize, I got to be better as a football player. And, if we want to win, this is not the recipe for it.
Some pretty harsh honesty from
Like
C.J.
that.
Stroud. Yeah, but Lawrence, this was a guy drafted as a top 6 quarterback this year, and we're having the conversation of, can you even start him this week?
Yeah, and he never had the rushing upside from a fantasy perspective. So now when you're not getting it in the passing game, that makes it a little worse. So I'm gonna close it out this week for Stroud against the Lions. Now the Detroit Lions have allowed in their first 4 games, they allowed 3 top 12 quarterbacks. They've allowed none their past 4 games. Stroud himself only has 2 top 10 finishes this season. I can tell you they've played a lot more than 2 games this season. So it's just not consistent. Not having Nico Collins and not knowing if you'll have him this game yet doesn't help at all. So until we know that, maybe the tune changes for me in this game if you get Nico Collins back, because that is a high over-under in that game, but we don't know that yet. So I got to close it out, Matthew.
So, in case you were wondering, for people, regular viewers of the show or listeners to the show, you're like, Barry, you and Connor and Jay had a lot of fun at producer Steven's expense the last couple of days. The guy ran a marathon.
Right.
He ran a marathon, which is really impressive, and completed it, and yet we made fun of his outfit, and anyway, we just had some fun at producer Steven's expense, which is what we do on this show. But you were like, oh, well, I wonder if producer Steven's going to get some revenge on Barry, and the answer is yes, because I now have to talk down C.J. Stroud 3 days before I go to Houston, Texas. We're going to be there. Fantasy football pregame is going to be there at an Applebee's near the Galleria. We'll give you the address here a little bit later in the show, but we're going to be there Sunday morning. I'm going to be surrounded by Texans fans, and they're all going to be like, Barry, the hell on C.J. Stroud, and I'm going to be like, I'm sorry. I wish I could keep it open, but I have to close it out. And it would have been just nice if we just could have avoided the topic. And I could have just sidestepped it here, but no.
It's our headliner.
Producer Steven puts it right up front. The fact of the matter is that he plays the Detroit Lions, and there's the only quarterbacks this year that have scored even 15 points against Detroit have either scored a rushing touchdown or had at least 38 yards rushing. And to your point, Lawrence, just Stroud generally does not run. Yeah. Right? He's in the games without Nico Collins this year. He's been under 200 passing yards in 3 of the 4 games without Nico. He's averaging under 12 fantasy points per game. The Lions have yet to allow multiple touchdown passes in a single game. So it's just, you're talking about a quarterback who doesn't run, who's without 2 of his top 3 weapons. At the moment, we're not thinking Nico Collins plays. We'll find out later in the week. And playing a really good defense. So he's my QB 15 this week, and unfortunately, I gotta close it out. I just don't see a path to him having a monster fantasy game. Like, he's super talented, but and it is, listen, the game's indoors, and it's a high over-under, so, and we expect Detroit to be able to move the ball, so sure, maybe there's some shootout potential here, but you just don't feel great about it. You just feel like they're going to want to run the ball with Joe Mixon, and
right.
The crazy thing
he's
about
a mid-tier
the offense
QB2 this week, unfortunately.
is that they've been running the ball so well.
So effectively.
It's actually crazy that it hasn't helped the offense overall and just helped them. If you would have told me Joe Mixon would be having the season that he's having, I'd say the Houston Texans are the best offense in football.
No, and they're rolling. I mean, listen, obviously tough game, and C.J. Stroud credit to him for kind of taking it on the chin there at the press conference. It wasn't just all on him.
His line was horrific.
Horrific, right? I mean, exactly. That's part of the other problem is that even without Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions are playing very good defense, especially on the line. And so, given how bad the offensive line is playing for the Texans, you just don't feel. There's not a lot to point to say like, hey, I think C.J. Stroud has a great game, other than to your point. Potential game environment because of the high over-under, and just he's C.J. Stroud and he's really talented. But they went to the wire with the Packers, right? If it wasn't for McManus kicking that last-second field goal, Texans win that game. They went to the wire with the Packers, a Packers team that just got blown out by the Lions. And again, it's one game, and it's a little bit of, it's very loosey-goosey math. I don't know. There's not a lot to point to here that makes you feel like, yeah, C.J. Stroud gonna have a big game this week. I'm closing it out. Sorry in advance, Houston.
They're going to hate you in Houston.
I know.
They're going to love me because I'm going to just act like this ain't even happened.
I know. I'm owning it.
Yeah, we got.
I was going to wear a Stroud
I would say
jersey.
you might have to wear the jersey.
I'm going to wear a Stroud jersey on Sunday in a desperate attempt to
think
suck
that
up
will
to the-
negate it. I
Okay,
think
I
you'd be
appreciate
good
it.
with
Thank
that.
you. That's
Yeah,
what we
do that.
All right.
Over to the running backs, Rico Dowdle. Listen, Matthew, Dallas has a bottom 5 implied team total this week with Cooper Rush under center. That's obviously going to hurt Rico Dowdle, but the good news is he finally got some volume and efficiency last week.
Played 72% of the snaps, handled 17 of the Cowboys' 20 running back touches with Ezekiel Elliott, a healthy scratch last week. In the both games that he's seen at least 15 touches, he's averaging 19. He's averaging 20.6 fantasy points per game, has at least 19 in both of them. And what's nice is that they're using him in the passing game, right? Double-digit target share now in 4 of the last 6 games for Rico Dowdle. It's a tough matchup against Philadelphia. They're top 5 in terms of fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs over the last month. But I would tell you that Cooper Rush, I think, probably more likely to dump it off, given the pressure that Philadelphia can bring. And so I'm actually going to keep it open on Rico Dowdle. I think he's a viable flex this week. He's my running back 24.
Yeah, past 4 games, this is what they've averaged against the Eagles in the run game: 3.3, 2.9, 4.2, and 4 yards a carry. That's tough, but you talked about his receiving. In 2 straight games, he's caught 5 or 6 targets for at least 30 yards. That's a lot of fantasy points right there. And I think if you could get him to play 70+% of the snaps like he did, that was the first time he did it this season. We'll see what happens when Zeke comes back. But I think they kind of seen like, hey, you know, this is it. We ain't in a great situation, but this is kind of the way we need to go right now, especially with Dak being out. I'll keep it open as well for that reason.
Yeah, Jerry Jones said on the radio this week that he expects Ezekiel Elliott to be back on the team this week, but I think that's more of a threat to Dalvin Cook's workload than it is Rico Dowdle's. Ezekiel Elliott just has not been effective this year, right? And so maybe he gets a handful of snaps and touches, but feels like this is Rico Dowdle's backfield.
Our next
It should be.
Yeah, it
but
should
who
be,
knows?
in theory.
On the other hand, you shouldn't be trading a 4th for Jonathan Mingo, so who knows what the Cowboys are doing.
He's
these
surrounded by
days.
dinosaurs, though.
Actually,
Dalvin
you know
Cook
what?
and Ezekiel Elliott.
You know what? It should be Deuce Vaughn's backfield.
Yeah, well,
that's whose backfield.
They've shown no
None.
willingness to
Let
get him
my
involved.
man spin.
Right.
Let little man spin out there. Come on.
Our next running back is Travis Etienne here, Lawrence. He had 5 touches in his first game back last week. I would say, listen, maybe they're easing him in, but we saw his workload decreasing even before he got hurt.
Yeah, and that's the key thing here, Connor. Another key thing, right, is that Dearness Johnson is still playing. He played 24% of the snaps. Now, that's 3rd of the Jaguars running backs, but he's still there. He's still coming in the game. So you could say they're easing him in, but now they started off playing 2 running backs. Now they playing 3. Then you look at the fact that, well, they're about to go here up against this Vikings defense. Well, you just saw what they did against Jonathan Taylor, 13 carries for 48 yards, so he couldn't run the ball against them. So you're going to tell me now, hey, let's start a running back who hasn't been as good as he's been in prior years against this defense. I'm going to say no for this week. Just too many guys they're working with there in that backfield. I got to close it out this week.
What about you, Matthew?
I'm closing it out as well. I mean, we've talked about Etienne and just not only the lack of the workload here, right? It's just this offense feels broken as well. Tank Bigsby, his emergence. He's played 5 games in which him and Tank Bigsby have both been healthy, right? Under 9 fantasy points per game in those for Travis Etienne. Last week, 31% of the snaps. And now he gets the Vikings, who give the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs this season. It's a tough matchup against the Vikings. You don't feel great about this offense. You feel like if there's a rushing touchdown that happens, you feel like that's probably more likely to be Tank Bigsby. And just feels like Travis Etienne doesn't get the consistent passing game work that you would want from somebody. It's almost, he's basically become like a 3rd down back. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's weird. This guy that was such a workhorse last year is now on the wrong side of a timeshare, it feels like.
And he just hasn't looked good
No.
when he came out of the gate early in the season with the workload you expected. So they just feel like they've moved on. Internally.
It's unfortunately it's a mess in Jacksonville, as producer Steven is well aware. Well aware. Just pointed that out, Steven. Well aware.
Definitely a Steven-produced show because we're going to keep the Jags talk going.
We're still talking more Jags?
We got more Jags. Ryan Thomas Jr. makes keep it open or close it out. A season-low 22 receiving yards last week. Lawrence, he's been dealing with the chest injury, but Minnesota's been somewhat vulnerable against the pass, especially with how much they blitz.
Bingo. They're good in the front seven, a little weaker on the back end. Look, I respect the veterans, Harrison Smith, Stephon Gilmore.
They're old.
But, yeah, you got that right.
Why'd you look at me when you said that?
Who looked at you? I might have side-eyed you a little bit. I don't know. But look, though, Minnesota, they allow the top 5 fewest points to running backs, right?
Yeah.
But they're bottom 3 when allowing points to receivers. So, I mean, that right there should be a no-brainer to you. Look, Brian Thomas, yes, season-low 22 receiving yards, but outside of that game in the Week 9 London game, he's averaging 78 receiving yards per game. He is their guy, and eventually, whether they're winning or losing, most of the time they losing, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to make a big play. I'm keeping this open.
I'm as well. Even last week with the lack of production, he still played over 90% of the snaps. Brian Thomas, to me, has earned every week. I don't care who he's playing. I'm not looking at the matchup. He is a no-brainer. I am starting him every week. Status in one bad game doesn't change that. You mentioned the Vikings and their defense. They are, Lawrence, just like you said, they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers as well. Negative game script. They're going to be throwing in this one. I'm keeping it open with Brian Thomas. He's my wide receiver 22 this week. It doesn't matter to me. Like, he's that good. He would have to fail in a number of games in a row for me to be like, maybe it's time.
Yeah,
for me
like 3.
Yeah, exactly. You're starting him this week. Don't get cute.
Michael Pittman Jr., Matthew, one of the biggest fantasy disappointments maybe on the entire season. He's got the Bills, who haven't been great against wide receivers this year. But whether it's Anthony Richardson, whether it's Joe Flacco, Pittman just really hasn't produced. Look at these numbers are startling. He's a touchdown-dependent wide receiver.
He certainly is. But, he's getting at least 5 targets a game basically over the last 4 of the last 5 games. You see it there on your screen. He's become somewhat touchdown dependent. If there's positives here, when you say he's touchdown dependent, he has gotten 4 end zone targets in his 4 games with Joe Flacco. He's scored in 2 of the games with Flacco under center. It's worth noting that Buffalo over the last month allows the 3rd highest catch rate to opposing wide receivers. Look, I get it. In 4 of his past 5 games, he's had a below 20% target share. Sort of the Michael Pittman's calling card has always been, well, he gets this massive volume. He's got this high floor. And he's in this new offense, whether it's Flacco or Richardson, like he's no longer like this high floor guy who's like 7 for 70 every week, and not really likely to score a touchdown. He's become the opposite. He's become this volatile, high variance player who potentially could get into the end zone or potentially not. He is touchdown dependent, but I think he's got a shot at scoring in a game in which obviously the Colts are underdogs here. I'm at wide receiver 29. I'm reluctantly keeping it open on Michael Pittman just because I don't think they're going to be able to run on Buffalo. I think they're going to have to throw. I think he's got a shot at a touchdown. Again, low end wide receiver. He's barely inside my top 30.
We have bye weeks too. Without the bye weeks, he's not in the top 30.
Correct. I mean, like Cedric Tillman's on a bye. Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs, all the Packers guys aren't. Jacoby Myers, DK Metcalf, JSN.
They're all over him.
They're all out. Right, and they're all out this week as well, and that's before you even get to some of the guys that are banged up as well. So, does A.J. Brown come back this week? That kind of stuff. Nico Collins, etc. So I am the most unenthusiastic keep it open of all time, but I am reluctantly keeping it open on Michael Pittman.
Well, sitting at the bar just down horrendous, but one more.
I'm going to happily keep it closed.
All right.
Just because he's their 3rd leading receiver. This ain't the 2013 Denver Broncos where you got 3 receivers going 1,000. You're the 3rd leading. You're supposed to be the number 1 receiver. Josh Downs is the best receiver on this team by far. And then you got Alec Pierce, who I think he has just as good a chance to have maybe even a better chance because he get downfield to have a better game. And despite, my free AR5 campaign, he is not starting this week. But Joe Flacco is. In 3 Joe Flacco starts this season, Michael Pittman is averaging 3 catches and 28 yards, and
Is that bad? Are you saying that's bad?
I heard it ain't good. I heard it's not good. There's one guy in that passing offense that you know could go get 6 for 60. That's Josh Downs.
Correct.
And he did catch the 2 touchdowns. One of them versus the Titans. Flacco was like, he just threw it up. And Pittman, he did make a great catch.
But that's what he's going to do this game.
Right.
I mean, that's
probably, and then it'll be he'll be like 2 for 20, and then boom, you got double-digit fantasy points right there.
Games in Indianapolis, and yet the Colts are still 4-point underdogs, right? And so, in home field they're really almost a touchdown
Throw
underdog,
script.
right? And so when you add in home field there, right? The Buffalo Bills are probably about a touchdown better than the Colts, or close to it. And so over the last 4 weeks, Bills 7th against the run, 17th against the pass. So again, in terms of the best way to attack Buffalo is through the air. They're going to be negative game script. They're just going to be throwing. Again, it's a really reluctant keep it open, but I have him as a top 30 play because of game script and injuries and other wide receivers. So I hear you. I would not feel good about starting him, but I am reluctantly keeping it open.
Fantasy aside, if they could somehow get that run game going, they actually have a shot to be in this game. The Dolphins gashed them and took them all the way to the wire. That opened things up for Tua, and he ended up being an excellent point guard in that game. So if they could somehow just run the ball and be successful doing that, their defense has played better. That's why they're in these games. So if they could get that run game and defense from a football standpoint, don't be shocked that they actually play with the Bills.
That's the Bills' problem right now. Remember week 1 against Arizona, they allowed a lot of points. Derrick Henry went nuts on them. Breece Hall got back on track against them. And then Miami, they're a vulnerable defense.
No doubt.
We'll see. All right, our next wide receiver, Keenan Allen right now here, guys. He's got the Patriots. Matthew, he had 10 targets in week 9. He only caught 4 of them. Caleb Williams has been a little wild and out of control, but still 10 targets for Keenan Allen and a good target share on the season.
Yeah, 26% target share for Keenan Allen. It's positive, but that's about it. I'm actually going to close it out. He's my wide receiver 39 this week. Look, even with that 26% target share, in 5 of the 6 games he's played this year, he's been under 40 receiving yards. There's all sorts of talk in the preseason about Fat Keenan and a lot of jokes and memes, and regardless of where his weight is, it just hasn't produced in Chicago so far. It just hasn't connected there. He's averaging 4.7 yards per target this season. That's the 3rd lowest among players with 40 or more targets. Among players with 40 or more targets, I mean, they've turned him into like this super dink and dunk guy. Yeah. You've got Moore and Odunze stretching the field a little bit. Over the past 4 weeks, it's not an easy matchup against the Patriots, by the way. New England allows the fewest receptions per game to the slot, which is where Allen's running the majority of his the majority of his routes as well. This feels like it's going to be a very low-scoring game. He's at best he's the 4th option on this offense after Moore, Odunze, and DeAndre Swift. And I think there's an argument you could make that maybe you feel better about Kmet than him.
Right.
Like it's kind of close there. So, don't love the game environment, don't love the production. Caleb Williams has been very up and down so far this year. The over/under is 39. And Chicago, by the way, is a 6-point favorite. So the expectation here is they're running in the second half. I'm closing it out on Keenan Allen.
Yeah, me too. You said up and down. It's weird because it's like down, up, and now they're down again. And you know what, Matthew? I think this got a little something to do with last 2 games are against Arizona, Washington, 2 good teams. In those 2 games, Caleb Williams is only completing 49% of his passes. Look at the 3 games before that, Jaguars, Panthers, and the Rams before they started playing decent. So it's starting to feel like it depends on who they play. And to your point, this Patriots defense, they are not any slouches. The over-under's 39 right here. You just don't love this for games. You don't love this type of game for receivers in fantasy, period.
That is graphic that we just showed is crazy for people that are just listening to the podcast. We basically showed Keenan Allen's best 5 fantasy games this year. He had 1 game over 20 fantasy points, and the rest are all under 8.
Yeah,
those are right. Other than the 2 touchdown game, like his best fantasy games are like he got 7.9 one week. Like it's been it just hasn't gone the way we all hoped for Keenan Allen in Chicago so far. I'm closing it out.
Another player we were hopeful for after a slow start, or at least keeping an eye on, was Mark Andrews. Lawrence, Mark Andrews had a 2-game stretch where he looked like the guy we thought we were drafting, but besides that, it's just been brutal this year. Week 9, 2 targets, 2 catches, 26 yards. Just no looks in this offense right now, which is a great offense, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be like Matthew was on Michael Pittman. I'm gonna reluctantly keep this open. This why he ain't had more than 5 targets in the game, right? Well, it was against the Bengals in Week 5. He caught 4 or 5 targets for 55 yards, and now the over/under for this game is 53. That's basically why I'm taking the shot on this. Also, too, it's the second week in a row that he's leading the tight ends in offensive snaps. He was not doing that the prior 4 weeks, which was really alarming. But the past 2 weeks, he's been on the field more than any of the other Ravens tight ends, and they ended up blowing out Denver. So you stop needing some versus Joe Burrow, that guy. He ain't missing them passes that Bo Nix missed. He ain't missing them 3 touchdowns. So I think it could end up being another one of those back and forth things. And if Mark Andrews is the tight end in the game, you just like, hey, he'll be there. You know, Lamar still trusts him. And that's pretty much where I'm going with it. I'm expecting another shootout type of game. So you just hoping. And that's why I'm reluctantly keeping it open.
Yeah, I'm closing it out. I mean, you're right. Basically, he is very much he's a touchdown-dependent tight end too, right? He's got 6 games in which he hasn't scored a touchdown this year. In those 6 games, he's averaging 4.4 fantasy points per game. Like, he needs a touchdown to pay off for you. Now, in a good game environment, maybe he does score a touchdown. We've seen, more progress there. But in 6 of 9 games so far this year, he's got below a 15% target share. Since week 3, he has 1 game with a route participation above 60%. So yes, he could get into the end zone on Thursday night, but so could Charlie Kolar or Isaiah Likely or new addition Deontay Johnson or Zay Flowers, or maybe Derrick Henry just runs it in 3 times, or Lamar Jackson, or Nelson Aguilar. They have so many weapons there, Lawrence, and so that's you
might have forgot somebody. I don't know if you did, but you just
Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman.
Justice Hill.
And Justice Hill. Yeah. I mean, again, they just have so many guys, and so it's a good game environment. If he scores a touchdown, it pays off for you. But I'm closing it out because it's just, what are the odds? So it's just, how lucky do you feel on Mark Andrews? Yeah.
To recap, Matthew's keep it open, close it out rankings, and Lawrence, you'll rip through yours after these. CJ Stroud at QB 15. That is a close for CJ Stroud. Rico Dowdle stays open, RB 26. Travis Etienne, though, he's closed at RB 33. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 22, he's open. Michael Pittman, the biggest reluctant open of all time at wide receiver 29 due to some bye weeks. Keenan Allen is a close at wide receiver 39. Mark Andrews is a close for Thursday Night Football as tight end 16. Lawrence, you had a couple of differences.
The 2 differences was I'm going to keep it closed on Michael Pittman and reluctantly open on Mark Andrews.
Let's take a look at the injuries we're tracking right now for Thursday Night Football largely. Lamar Jackson, of course, dealing with a knee. Lamar, though, most likely just kind of in a rest mode at this point. T. Higgins with the quad injury. That's a short week. It's going to be a long shot for T. Higgins. Isaiah Likely with a hamstring. So we'll keep an eye on all of these before tomorrow night's game. Chris Olave in concussion protocol. Drake London left in the first half and did not return with that hip injury. A.J. Brown could be back this week coming off the knee injury. CeeDee Lamb's dealing with the shoulder. Keon Coleman hurt his wrist in that game. Nico Collins is eligible to return after missing 4 games while he was on IR. He's had a hamstring injury. D'Amico Ryans said they will continue to evaluate that situation. So a lot up in the air right now, guys.
Right, and not even on this list is Christian McCaffrey, who we're going to track and see if he continues to be on schedule to play this weekend as well. Feels like CeeDee Lamb has a good shot at playing. Lamar's going to play, but the rest of these guys are Drake London probably plays, I feel like, but a lot of big names. To your point about sort of wide receivers, again, you look at that: Olave, London, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Keon Coleman, T. Higgins.
Higgins is big.
No,
that's
I know,
a big one.
But that's why why I reluctantly keep it open with Michael Pittman. Like, we're running out of guys.
Yeah, we really are. All right, we're taking our first break. When we're back, keep it open or close it out is done, but we got Who's Eatin Good coming right up, including Rhamondre Stevenson and Davante Adams back with his old quarterback.
Yeah, heading to Houston. Me, Jay Croucher, Lawrence Jackson, and George Savaricas. We're coming to the home state of Texas. Come on out there, say hi. We will take pictures. We will answer your questions. And you get to meet Ma and Pa Berry. My parents will be there, Jay Croucher. You're going to see
Your creators.
my creators.
Unbelievable. I'm looking forward to it. I've never met them.
I know, and I'm sure you have many questions.
I do. How did this happen?
Yes, 1,000%.
How did we
So
get here?
if you have a question for myself, Jay, Lawrence, or George, or my parents, come to the Applebee's.
Fantasy football pregame is back on the road this weekend. The crew is headed to Houston for Lions at Texans, and you can be part of the action by dropping by the Applebee's Bar and Grill at 2959 North Loop West. Doors open at 9:30 a.m. Central Time. So come out. Let us help you with your burning fantasy questions and grab some food.
Yeah,
while you're at
100%. It is free to get in. Doors open at 9:30. People, I got some people asking, like, is there a cover charge? Are there tickets? Absolutely not. It is free.
We don't have the band yet. That's why.
Huh?
We never found the band.
We never found the
So
band.
There's no
we
cover
never found
charge.
the slot merchants. So there's no cover charge at all. It's 100% free. First come, first serve in terms of tickets. I would say get there early. The previous stops lines have been out the door, and we're thrilled. But everyone, if you show up, we will find you a seat. Your chance to get on national television. And again, you don't even have to have a fantasy football question. If you just want a question like, what was Matthew like as a child? That's a loaded question. Anyway, you can ask that. What do you think you'll ask my parents, Lawrence, when you meet them?
I'm going to ask them what made them name you Matthew J. Berry. Then people don't know this. Your middle name is Jaquan.
Yes, this
People
is true.
don't know that.
Yeah.
So I want to
often
ask
forgotten.
your folks, like, what made y'all name this man Matthew Jaquan Berry?
Yeah.
Maybe Jr.
Yeah, why not?
Matthew Jaquan Berry Jr. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to.
Same
asking.
too. Why the Matthew? Why not just go straight with
Yeah.
Jaquan?
Yeah, Jaquan Berry.
Then we be on here calling you Jay Berry.
Jay Berry. Yeah.
So
That's right.
close.
Hey, look now. We gonna be in Houston now,
Yeah.
right? Home of Mike Jones. Who? Mike Jones, right? Look, so you might have to wear your gold teeth out there.
Okay.
Get ready. This Houston now. I'm
Yeah.
gonna wear mine, Houston.
All right.
Me and Jaquan gonna be grilled up out there.
Always.
Jay has no
100%.
idea what he's walking into. No idea. An Australian in
No,
Houston.
Jay, this is real America, baby.
Right, right,
Houston,
right.
Texas.
Yeah.
Houston's a great city. I grew up in College Station, which obviously is near, it's like an hour and a half away from Houston. My parents making the drive, so that'll be fun. Looking forward to seeing them. Looking forward to seeing everyone in Houston at the Applebee's there. So please come out.
Speaking of Applebee's, Who's Eatin Good? Served by Applebee's. Rhamondre Stevenson has been a touchdown machine, Matthew, and thank God he has, because it's kept his fantasy relevance alive and well.
7 total touchdowns this season. Only 5 running backs have more than that. Having said that, in the 3 games he hasn't scored this season, he's averaging under 5 fantasy points per game. And his last 3 games, he's averaging 2.2 yards per carry, 37 for 82. Now, he's averaging over 16 fantasy points because of the touchdowns.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you look at the upcoming schedule, at Chicago this week, you don't love that. Home to the Rams, at Miami, home to Indianapolis. Kind of a mixed bag there. I think Rhamondre Stevenson might be a little bit of a sell high here because, he's so touchdown dependent. Now, again, he's sort of all they got. He's currently running back 7 on the season. I'm at running back 24 this week. I think he struggles against the Bears. So if you're looking to sell high, I think his value is at its peak right now.
I would say he is eating good, but it's
For
like
sure.
a version of like you stealing snacks out the pantry in the middle of the night type of eating good. You know what I mean? Like Chicago, this is you depend, like what you're hoping is, can New England get near the goal line? Well, the Bears allow the 5th fewest first downs, and then they're top 8 in third down efficiency. So those numbers tell you it's hard to get to the goal line, which is where Rhamondre Stevenson gets his points. So just be wary of that if you are a Rhamondre Stevenson manager, like Jaquan said. he's a sell-high candidate. That would be the last time I call you Jaquan.
That's
Until
okay.
Houston.
I've been
See how
called
Houston
worse.
reacts to it.
Save it for Houston?
That's right. Yeah.
Save it
I
for Houston.
think it'll be received well.
Yeah.
Or confused. We'll see. Davante Adams reunited with Aaron Rodgers, and for the first time, Matthew, they looked like the Packers version against the Texans, and he's got a great matchup with the Cardinals this week.
Yeah, over the last 4 weeks, Arizona bottom 12 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. Davante Adams, to your point, just getting more and more assimilated into the Jets offense, more and more reconnecting with Aaron Rodgers. His catches, his yards, and his fantasy points have increased each week since the trade. 34% target share last week for number 17, despite having to leave the game to be evaluated for a concussion. So he's in and out of the game for a little bit, and yet still big game for Davante Adams, kind of overshadowed because Garrett Wilson had such a ridiculous game, including, catch the, one of the catches of the century. But Davante Adams is my wide receiver 6 this week on the road at Arizona.
Yeah, you look at the teams they got coming up, Arizona, Colts, and then Seattle. You like them. I think the Jets low-key could get on some kind of little streak, but we'll say that for another day. In this day, I like Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson way more right now than Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, because Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson, those are 2 wide receiver 1s for your football team. Tyreek Hill is a wide receiver 1, and Jalen Waddle is definitely a wide receiver 2. He ain't even playing like that right now. So I like what the Jets got going against Houston. I like Davante Adams going forward.
Our last one here, Theo Johnson, the rookie tight end for the New York Giants. Lawrence, we're seeing him more involved in the offense, and with his size and athleticism, a red zone presence as well.
Yeah, those are all great things, too. And the crazy thing about Theo Johnson is he's played no less than 71% of the snaps in every game this season. The past 4 games, he's played 90% of the snaps. That's also why I'm nervous about him going forward, right? Because you're playing all those snaps, and now we're kind of relying on a 35-yard touchdown he got with 2.5 minutes left in the game that they were losing. So I don't love that aspect of it. I also don't like the aspect of starting multiple pass catchers from the Giants offense. It's Malik Neighbors or die. That's what it is in the Giants offense. Malik Neighbors or die. So it's great to see that he's involved in the offense, but until this offense gets like a big makeover, it's not something you say, it's not some player you be like, I'll stream him this week, because then you're hoping for a touchdown.
Look, he's out there, right? 4 straight games, he's had at least a 70% route participation. He's playing at least 90% of the snaps here. And Connor, for people that might be unfamiliar with Theo Johnson, rookie out of Penn State.
Yeah, size, speed is just insane. Not a lot of guys are 6'6" and can run and jump like him. And if you're wondering why he wasn't insanely productive at Penn State, he played with another tight end that could be a first-rounder this year in Tyler Warren. So Penn State has 2. They have 2 great tight ends while he was there. He kind of was underappreciated and underutilized. But now with the Giants, he's been a part of their offense and effective.
Yeah, I mean, right, suddenly this Giants offense is, it's not amazing, but at least it's coming to view. Like, okay, you got Malik Neighbors.
They have young talent.
You're getting some production from Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Daniel Jones has looked better. And now here comes Theo Johnson, who had a 23% target share last week and gets the Carolina Panthers. So I do think he's potentially a viable streamer, Lawrence, just because over the last 4 weeks, no team in the NFL gives up more fantasy points to opposing tight ends than your Carolina Panthers. And so I do think Theo Johnson is a viable streamer in leagues in where you're desperate for anyone that qualifies for the position. I have him as a top 20 play this week.
We're taking our last break. When we're back, we're looking at the early lines for the week ahead. Last call coming right up. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Barry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours.
It's yours.
It's time for the last call. We're taking a look at early lines on DraftKings. Check out some of these spreads, guys. The Chiefs are favored by 8 points over the Broncos. The Chargers by more than a touchdown over the Titans. The Eagles against Cooper Rush's Cowboys by a touchdown.
Yeah, by the way, and the Cowboys play terrible at home.
They play terrible.
At home, right.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's true, but they're bad.
But no, you're right.
Yeah.
It's been a massive problem for them, which is bizarre this year. And then the Ravens and the Bears are both favored by 6 points. The Ravens on the short week against the Bengals, which is really telling, Lawrence, because the short week home field advantage for Cincinnati should be even larger. What do you like looking at the early lines?
I actually like the Dolphins money line against the Rams here. Despite the Dolphins being 0-2 since Tua's came back, I really like how they've played football. They've ran the ball. They got the run game going, and then it opened up the pass. They just happened to face Josh Allen on the other side, and that's hard to beat.
What about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Niners are 5.5-point favorites on the road for a 1 o'clock game against Tampa Bay. I get it. Tampa Bay's on a short week. They played the Monday night game, but give me the Bucs plus 5.5. It feels like they're always in every single game. They just went to the wire with the Chiefs. Like, they play tough, and the Niners, I know they've had 2 weeks to prepare, but still, like, they're beat up as well. They're 20th against the pass. They're a bottom 12 pass defense over the last month. Baker's playing really, really well. I think Tampa Bay, after losing last week to the Chiefs, like, Tampa Bay is a little bit desperate. Anyway, 5.5 is too big a number. Give me the Buccaneers plus 5.5.
I like the Lions minus 3.5 over the Texans. I just feel like this is a buzzsaw game for Houston right now, and I hate to say that. I know you guys are going to be down there. I won't,
Thanks,
so I can say that.
Yeah, exactly. You won't.
That's no problem. I'm not going to be. It's like Magic Johnson. I'm not going to be here.
I ain't going to be here.
So it doesn't matter for me. Listen, 90% of the tickets are in Detroit right now for good reason. I think this line ends up being 4.5, maybe even 5 points. The Lions are really good at stopping the run. The Texans right now, they want to run the ball. I just think it's a bad matchup for them all around.
Yeah, it'll be tough. It's going to be a tough game. We'll see. Detroit's playing football as well as any team.
You guys will bring
in
some
the
hope,
NFL.
though.
We'll bring some hope, sure. Yeah, Lawrence, remember to pack some hope.
Is it going to go with
your
my
grills.
Jameer Gibbs jersey?
Yeah, exactly. Are you gonna wear a Gibbs jersey to Applebee's?
Nah, man, nah. When we was in Pittsburgh, I wore a Pittsburgh Pirates hat.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't watch baseball. I was all Pittsburgh. But
Right.
we also felt like the Steelers would win that game too.
We
don't
did.
feel like
We
Houston
did.
was winning.
What's the best
I
deep
just-
cut Texans jersey you could pull off for this trip?
I mean, I thought about trying to find an
Ron
Aaron Foster.
Dane.
Somebody from the
Ron-
expansion draft.
Yeah,
I think.
ooh,
Like
Ron
Aaron
Dane.
Glenn.
Aaron Glenn.
expansion
good
pick.
one. Yeah.
I don't know if those exist. but-
Ron Dane, like
Brian
Amazing.
Cushing.
Oh God, who's one of the obscure running backs? Why can't I? They had like.
There's been plenty.
God, there's been so many of those running backs that like were good for like
Chester
3 weeks.
Taylor, maybe.
No, I don't know. I'll think of. I can't. As soon as we get up the air, I'm gonna be like, oh, that guy. Anyway, it's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Lawrence and Connor, I'm Matthew. We'll see you tomorrow for happy hour. And come to Houston on Sunday morning. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.